Hello, everyone, and welcome to Google Forms Basics. Today, we're going to be covering a lot of different activities, different features of Google Forms, which continues to grow and get better and have more options to it. And very excited that you're all with us here today. So let's see what we're going to be looking at today. All right. So in Google Forms, we'll talk about briefly Google Drive, how that works. In fact, we may be uploading some files to our Google Drive, and so we'll discuss how that works. Google Forms is one of the several Google apps that Google has created. Apps that are kind of like Microsoft's Office with Word and Excel and PowerPoint and all that. Google has slides and forms and docs and sheets, which is kind of like the equivalent of Excel. Um, and I will just tell you that Google Forms is really an amazing product. And we're going to see today just how incredible Google Forms are. And as we go along, we'll be doing different activities. And even though that activity may not be exactly a representation of what you need to do in your department or your school site, the features and the abilities are there. And so you should be thinking, how does this apply to me? What can I do with these tools, these skills that I'm learning and seeing demonstrated that will benefit my department or my school site? And I'm just here to tell you that Google Forms are incredible. The ability to collect responses, to do surveys, to collect answers to questions that will load up into a spreadsheet. And it's really quite remarkable what they've done. Can you do this kind of stuff with Microsoft? You can. And I used to teach that in the advanced course, but I'm here to tell you that it's so complex and non-intuitive. It was one of the most arduous things to teach and share, and very few people in the district I ever met were actually doing it because it was so confusing. Not Google Forms, quite intuitive, and it's wonderful. Again, all part of the Google Apps, Office Apps products that they have. And where does this reside? It does not reside on our computer. It resides up in the cloud, in the Google server farms. And every click that we do in our browser as we're using Google Forms or Google Drive or Google Docs is being recorded up in the cloud in the server farms. And every click and every stroke and every movement that we're doing at near the speed of light is going back and forth. And so it's not being recorded on our hard drive. It's not part of our computer per se, unless we download something that we've created in one of the Google apps. So it's up there in the cloud, and we'll get more information on that as we go. So we're going to be looking at the formatting and editing ability of Google Forms, how that works, and we'll be doing some practice with that. How to change a form name, couldn't be easier. How to add new questions, how to change question types, how to add sections, and we'll talk about the different choices that you have as you add different sections. And there's some really neat things that you can do with that. How to rearrange questions and sections, we'll go through that. The positives and negatives, I don't think really there are any negatives because everything that Google Forms does is really incredible and it works quite easily. And again, if you try to do the Microsoft version of this, it's impressive, but it's so counterintuitive. And you're talking about content control fields and all this stuff. And you're just like, what the heck are these words? What do they mean? It's really difficult to get a hold of. So we'll show you some templates that are available to you from Google. We'll show how to add pictures and videos. Couldn't be easier with Google. How to share the form or the survey. So many of you have already come today and have filled out the survey, the just for fun pretend survey that I sent you. And I looked just before class with some great responses. You guys are awesome. Thank you for doing that. And we'll see how all that works. And so collaborating, another thing you can do with Google is multiple people can be editors of whether it's a doc or whether it's a sheets or whatever it is. Multiple people can be working on it at the same time in real time. And whatever changes someone else makes on their computer, wherever they are in the world, you get to see those changes. And if you're the owner of it, then you have control whether or not to accept those changes. Collecting responses, again, absolutely fantastic. Way better than Word ever did it. And then saving those responses to a Google Sheet could not be easier. So those are some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. And so I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up just a blank Google form and see if we can start doing some work. But even before that, what I'm going to do is go to my Google Drive, and not a bad idea if you'd like to do this with me. let's see, I'm going to shrink that down. All right, so where are we? Going to go back to my Google Drive. Oh, look out. Got all kinds of stuff in there. All right, so again, if you're brand new to the whole Google everything, this is going to be somewhat confusing to you, and I apologize for that. And if you have some questions about Google Drive, and again, we have a class this afternoon, but if you have some questions that, how do you do this? How do you make a folder? How do you do all that? We're going to show a couple of things right now, but again, at the end, I'd be happy to answer all your questions. And if you can make it to our afternoon class, we're going to go through all of that in great detail. But here's my Drive, and it's kind of like my desktop. In fact, at the risk of embarrassing my family, I'm just going to shrink this down. So let's get rid of this. These are some of the tools that I use. So this is our home office, and there's my wife, my mother-in-law, my daughter, and my granddaughter. Aren't they cute? So my wife put this photo on here, but this is my desktop, and I'm just simply sharing this with you because this is my computer. It's not one the school provided because I'm at home. But it's got a hard drive, and it's got a bunch of different programs on it. And if you look down at the bottom taskbar, you can see that I've got Microsoft Office, different shortcuts here to PowerPoint, Excel, Word, and all that. And then some of my tools I use when I'm taking clips and things, and this video thing that I found that was actually free, which is how I'm able to make these videos with the, what do you call those? Like the little slides at the beginning that say, welcome to this class or something like that, that blue thing that we saw just a moment ago. So this is my computer. It's got a hard drive, and all of these files that I have out here, and some are from my wife, some are from me, some are from work. All of those files are on the hard drive. In fact, if I go up here and let's see, if I go back to PC, I go to desktop, here's where I keep all of my class files, and they're on my hard drive. And so everything that everything that I sent you, I just go to there, and oh, I got all kinds of stuff that I've added to that today. But all the handling, let's change that back to the way it was. There we go. Not sure how that changed, but all this resides in my hard drive. And what's the point? The point is that when you get into the world of Google, let's see, where are we? Don't need that. Click on this one here. So when you get into the world of Google, everything is up in the cloud, as I mentioned before. So right now, I happen to be in Google Chrome. Used to be called Internet Explorer, but the new one for Microsoft is called Edge. I'll just click that open. I don't know if that looks familiar to you or not, but I don't use that one because if you're using Google products, you want to make sure you're staying in the Google world. And there's so many more things you can do. So in a Google Docs class the other day, I was teaching how you could do the Google Voice typing, which is incredible. And one of our staff members at the end said, "Hey, Mr. J, you know what? On that one menu you clicked on to get to the Google Voice, mine's not there. Can you tell me why?" I had no idea, or actually I had forgotten about this, something I learned a few years back, that if you're on a Microsoft product, certain of the Google features won't work. So always make sure you're in Google Chrome. And again, it's the one that looks like this right here. Google Chrome is the best one to do anything Google. All right, so here is my drive, and what I'm going to do, and what I'd like you to do, perhaps, to make things easier, because as you can see, you can really get a lot of files, and they go on forever and ever, and sometimes, depending on how you have this organized, we'll talk about this in our Drive class, but you could have things that you've just opened up 3 days ago, it could be all the way at the bottom or somewhere in the middle. It gets very confusing. So what we're going to do is underneath the quick access toolbar, and again, we're in Drive, so if you can click on that, it'll refresh your page and you'll be down to your basic page. Beneath the quick access, different tiles that we have here, we have our section of folders. We have a number of different folders here. I'm going to create a folder, a brand new one right here. And as you see up here, we're just in the Drive. We're gonna have a new one. I'm gonna call it Today's Folder. And if you're trying to follow along at home, not a bad idea to do this, or you could just name it, Google Forms class or something like that. Since you're only gonna probably have one of those, I have new classes every day. So Today's Folder, and then I might just put forums on there because I'm gonna have another class today in case I don't get time to erase this. And so I'm gonna create it. And because I was here on my Drive, it's going to show up somewhere here on my Drive. And as you can see, mine's in alphabetical order. So the numbers come first, and then A through Z, Zoom recordings being the very last one. And I want to make this brighter. So I'm going to right click on it and say change color. And I'm not sure what color I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and just do red because that sort of stands out. All right, today's folder. I see my ERO one over there, but all right, so I'm going to open that up, and then we're going to see my drive, today's folder. And so anything that I'm doing today, when I'm copying things or I'm uploading files or whatever, they're all going to show up in here. And let's go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to go and pretend which of these. In fact, I'm just going to do one, the Google Forms online thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say upload file. And again, because I'm in my drive and I'm in the folder I just created, when I upload this file, it's going to end up right here. If the file I wanted was actually this one up here or another one that I could see, I could left click, drag it, just like you see here, drop files here, or do the new button, same thing. I'm just going to upload a file. And then I'm going to go into my desktop. I'm going to go find my, where are you? Excuse me. I'm going to go to my Google Forms. And for some reason that keeps switching back and forth. And again, if you're new to computing, this is one of the reasons that things are so confusing, because the way that things can look differently so quickly. So actually, I just want to have it listed like that. Makes it a little bit easier. So there's two things that I want to bring in today. This one, and let's see if it'll let me do the control trick. So I do both of them. I think that's what I'm going to do right there. Okay, let's do that. And so down here, it says uploading 2 files, and I'm bringing those in. And so now I can take a look at these. So the first one is, and I send this out, and again, eventually this kind of stuff will all be on that website, so I won't need to keep sending you all this stuff. And if you've already downloaded from other classes, by all means, don't download it again. It just makes for a lot of extra things on your computer. So this first section is about Google Drive, just a bunch of different links that you can click on, some YouTube videos, and then there's a section on Google Docs. All these things are available to you simply because individuals that said, hey, Mr. J, that's great. I learned about forms today, but I really want to learn about Sheets. Do you have any sites you can recommend? And so here's a whole bunch of different things that are available on Sheets that I found. And then forms, of course, we're talking about today, slides, lots of videos on slides, because people like to do those, and then just some other helpful links that are there. And so any of this stuff you could find yourself by simply going and to Google search and saying, how do you import video files in Google Forms? And bam, you're going to find 1,000 different things that will describe how to do that. So all I've done is, let's go back here, is put a lot of those links here for you. So that may be helpful. Sometimes people like to have some things that are just quick and easy to get to. So what are the online handbooks? Unlike our Microsoft Office handbooks that are written and last for several years until we switch from, say, Word 2013 to Word 2016 and so on and so forth, Google is always changing. So to create a handbook that features might change, will change every week or 3. In fact, several times. It's hard to have a handbook. So all I did was go to the Google support pages and then find the categories, if you will, the chapters, like create, edit, and format, or share form and collect responses, tools and troubleshooting. And so these links are what Google has in their support pages. So let's see, I'm going to just click on this one down here real quick. By doing that with my mouse wheel, it opens up on a new page. So here we are, we're in the Google support pages, and it says view and manage form responses. And it says view responses by question. We're going to be doing that today. By person, all responses on a spreadsheet. All of the steps are there. Sometimes you'll see videos here. Sometimes you'll see just steps. A lot of times you'll see screenshots of how to do different things. But these, again, are the Google support pages. And how did we get to that? Why, we just, we used our Google Forms online handbook, which I provided for you to apparently it's only 1 page long. Some of them are like 4 pages long, but these are all the links that Google has, their support pages. So just making you aware of that's what you have available to you. All right, so since I'm in my today's folder, and again, I'm just going to back up so those of us that are new to all this will kind of get a better idea what's happening. So anytime I click on Drive, it kind of resets my Drive desktop, if you will. And again, this is on a browser and it's up in the internet. And so then on my folders down here, I created a today's folder for forums. And then inside there, I've already uploaded a couple things to it. So what I want to do now is we're going to explore the forms, the Google Forms user interface. And so one of the ways I can do that is I can click over here and I can go find forms and then click on a blank form or even go to a template. But just again, to show you that there's more than one way to do something, I can also do it over here. So maybe just for fun, we'll take a look at templates real quick. So we'll see what we have. So this is interesting. We're in our kind of like our form, our own personal form. So I should have, let's see where we are. All right. So when it says general, this is the stuff that that Google has provided, and we have San Diego Unified. So somebody has made and then posted here. And again, I don't know exactly how that happens. No one's ever explained it to me. But now and again, you will see different things show up in all of the Google apps in the template gallery. If you're in Google Docs, it might be some docs on things related to teachers or maybe school sites or something. So let's take a look at this. Today at School is one that someone has done, and syllabus acknowledgement template. Okay, maybe that's someone put that up there because middle schools or high schools need to use this, and so they make it available to everyone. That's great. It's from the San Diego Unified. But since we don't really have a lot of teachers in this course, as most of us are classified employees, let's just go ahead and look at the general and see if we can see something that interests us. So anything you see here is just a template, and you can change it, you can alter it, you can what's the word, edit it and put whatever sentences or things that you want on that. We're going to be doing that certainly very soon. But this is the kind of stuff that you can do in Google Forms. So let's see if we find one that's interesting that might relate to something we're doing. Oh, contact information. That could be helpful. Let's take a look at that one. All right, so here it is. We are actually in the building phase of this because you can see we have all of our tools. And when we click on a section, you see the blue line, which indicates where we're working. And this is one that's set up in a template. Contact information, looks like name, a short answer, response there, email. We see these little dots that are saying that they're required. In fact, you can see right here where you can make it required or unrequired. We're going to be looking at how to do all of these different things, but here's one already, and it's a template. And we can start adding things, and we can start changing stuff, and we can do whatever we want with it. It's just simply a template that has allowed us to get started. So for example, we go up here to theme options. Right now we can see there's kind of a green color. Maybe if we wanted, we could change it to blue and see what that looks like. And then maybe if we want the background color to be a little bit darker, we can do that. Just some basic stuff that we can do right off the bat. So just know that the templates are something that you can tweak and you can change in any way you want. So if I'm looking over here and I want for some reason to make that a capital letter, why, I can do that. And in fact, if I go up here to, well, let's look at this real quick. Upload image. So again, things are changing all the time in the Google apps, and forms changed significantly about 2 or 3 years ago, I want to say, and they started doing things differently. It used to be that this header at the very top, you could select something straight off the internet, but now it's requiring you to get it off of one of their choices or off of your computer, which it's just an extra step. You got to go find something that you want, but whatever it is, if you pick one, you can just do that and it will change, and there it is. And notice that when I did that one, it's trying to guess what it is you want. And so it's changed the color in the background to kind of mimic what the picture is. And of course, if I were to choose another one, it might change those colors again. It didn't that time. but of course you can always change it back. You've got lots of things that you can do that are available to you. And then since we're here, we'll just look at the different themes that they have. Work and school. We see our elevator bar here. So there's quite a few that you can select. And if you watch carefully, you will find some that are moving. And if they are moving, they're like little little video loops or whatever. Let's see if we can find one here. I found a few yesterday. And if your computer is going slowly, then it's harder to find them. But some of these categories have more than others, you know, birthday, food and dining, partying, just kids, wedding, sports and games. I think this is one of the ones. So right here we see some gentleman making baskets in kind of a loop. And down below we have someone warming up to bat, getting ready to go. Up here, of course, we see someone playing with a soccer ball. So let's see if we can get this one to stick. So again, I can click on it and then click insert, or I can just double click on it and it will put it in there. All right, and it should be, when we go to our preview mode, let's see if he starts playing. Come on. I was playing with this yesterday, and sometimes the video thing would work, sometimes it wouldn't. I'm not sure what's going on there. It could be as simple as memory issues on my computer. I'm on my big desktop computer just because I was having memory problems with my laptop that I have, which is about a fifth as powerful as this one. So my guess is once this is sent out and someone's going to the link that this is going to play, but for some reason it's not playing right now. But I want you to notice that we're in this window here on our browser, and we see there's an edit button down here, but here's where we were. So when I went and said, okay, let's do a preview, it kicked it off to a new one. And then yet I can go back here and hit the edit button and start editing. And so just a word to the wise, when I was playing with this a few weeks ago, trying to reacquaint myself with Google Forms, I was surprised that suddenly I had like 8 different versions of the same thing in front of me. So what I just simply do is if once I do the little preview, rather than hit the edit button down there, I just get rid of the preview one and go back to where I was, just to keep things simple. So anyway, templates, that was my whole point, was sharing templates with you. So we go back and we see that there's a number of them, and these will change. You know, as Google adds more, they'll do more. But you might find something in there that would be helpful to you. I'll just double click on this one, event registration. Maybe you're at a school site, there's a parent night coming up or something like that. And so you've got kind of an example of what you could put. Maybe it's parent-teacher conferences or something, and for some reason you're responsible for setting that up at your site, then you can do that. There's something to get started with. Again, a template, pretty simple. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to go down to Google Forms, and I'm going to do a blank form so we can see what that looks like. All right, there are many different things we can do, but this is the very beginning, a brand new one, untitled form. So first things, if you want to title it, you can click on it and you can type in the name of it. Let's just call this today's form. Oops, I pushed the wrong button. No, we're good. Practice. All right, so we're going to call it that. And then I'll click somewhere else, and now we have it named. And you can see up here it was saying saving, and now it says all changes saved. So again, every time we do something, every stroke of the keyboard, every movement of the mouse, or anything that we click on, it's going back and forth at near the speed of light to the Google server farms, because it resides not on your hard drive, not on your computer, in this case, my home office desktop computer. It resides up in the cloud. So important to remember that. It will help you understand how things work a little bit better. All right, so here it is. This is our basic thing. So today is form practice. And so if I want to do the next part, you know, a little form description, I can say This is for practicing with forms. I should capitalize that. But we can add anything we want to it, and we can do a number of different changes. We'll see how all of that looks. So the first thing we did before, or we were looking at the other one, is we had like a little banner up on top. In fact, if I just look and see what this looks like already, that's pretty basic, and that's all it looks like. So let's see if we can doll that up. So again, it has kicked it out to, this is where we started. I just did the preview up here. That's what this button here is. And it put it on a new thing, a new tab on our browser. And again, I could go to edit from right there, but I'm going to keep this a little cleaner and not have so many versions. So this one here, when you hover over it, and by the way, in any application that you're using these days, pretty much everything that you can click on, you can hover over it, and it's going to give you a little screen tip. Customize theme. That's really tiny, and I apologize if that's hard for you to see, but it says customize theme. If I click on it, then it brings up this little themes option, and so immediately we can start changing some colors and doing some different things if that's what we want. But also notice down here we have font style, and so we have basic. That's what this is right here. If we do decorative, then already we're seeing that things are starting to change. If we do formal, like maybe for a wedding or I don't know, the important parent night at your school site or something, different options. And then of course, playful, which you might recognize that font. That's what I used in our For Fun form, which we sent out and many of you responded to, and I'm very grateful for. And then of course, choosing image, we looked at this before. You have all these different categories here. Let's just see what's under other. Ah, look, I finally found it. There's, we'll see that today, this butterfly in kind of a loop video. It could show up at the top. We could put that there, just about anything we want to. We can find all these different things. But also, and by the way, photos, these are the photos that are on your computer. At the risk of embarrassing my coworkers from back in 2017, someone had the great idea in our IT department. Most of these are programmers. Some of us are trainers and a couple of other things in between. We took these pictures. So those are the photos that we have in my sandy.net Google domain drive. I don't have really any other pictures, but if you had a bunch of pictures there, certainly you could draw from those and you could put those in the header. But let's look at upload. So again, this used to be where you could go straight to the internet, and just like in slides and many of the other, well, in fact, you'll see it later on down below. Well, we can upload videos and all kinds of things from the internet. But this one is, if we want to get something that's coming from our computer, or yeah, coming up from our computer. So we'll just take a look at that real quick. So again, we've seen this before. This is our browser. Our browser window. It allows us to go in and find things that we've downloaded or whatever, and we could find something to put up there. All right, we don't need that right now. I'm just going to select one just for fun. We'll put that one there and insert and see how that looks. All right, there we go. So again, we have some options straight off the bat of what we can do. And then we see this little toolbar that no matter where we are, it follows us around. Whatever we're working on, this little toolbar kind of follows us. So what do we have here? The first one is add a question, and we'll be seeing that in a little bit. Import questions. If you have something that you have saved somewhere and you want those to like come into this, that can work. Add title and description. That's kind of what we have right here already. We can add an image and add a video. And then we can add sections. So some very basic things. So here we have a question section, and I just clicked on it. And that's what happens when you click that button. It adds one of these. In fact, let's see what happens if I add that. So here's where we just were. But because I added one, it added a whole nother chunk down here. But let's go back to the first one. And so let's take a look at some of our options. So if you see this icon here, let's see if it gives us a screen tip. Nope, it's not doing it, but we know that's a picture. And so if we want to, we can then go do some great searching. We can look on our computer, if we have a camera, if we know the actual address on the internet, we could do that. If we want to go to our photos, and again, all I have are these silly Christmas ones, which are kind of funny. If I have something in my Google Drive, I can go find that, and it's already popping up some of the pictures I use to make my little face over here for my Sandy.net thing, or I can look in these various folders, and I certainly have a lot of things in there. Well, I thought I had more than that. Oh, I haven't uploaded them from my computer just yet. And then searching, we can actually go search for something. So if, for example, we're trying to find a horse, for some reason that was needed, we could do that. And then Google throws up all these things. Again, one of the greatest, they're the greatest search engine on the planet is Google. And then we could go find what we're looking for. And I don't know, this one looks cool. I'll just double click on that. And so again, by clicking here on this question, allows us to have a picture that's there. And then when you click on it, then you have some manipulation points, and it doesn't allow you to do everything that you want. Sometimes it won't let you go smaller or bigger, depending on how big that file was. But there it is. And so all that was just by clicking on that. So if we had again, think of what you're doing at your department, and we're going to jump out of this little practice thing here in a second. We're going to look at some real world examples that I sent out to you already, but just letting you know that you have all of these choices. So right now we're in the multiple choice, option 1. And once I type in something there, whatever it is, then I can add an option, and it goes down again, and I can have another choice there, and I can keep doing it. And then when I get to the end, I can put another down there, so you have another category that you can ask. But that's a multiple choice. Let's take a look at all the questions that we have. So when you filled out the form that I sent you, those of you that filled it out, thank you again for doing that. There were some that I had short answers, so you could only write out, I don't know what the number is, but maybe 150 characters, something like that. The paragraph one, which allows you to write a book if you'd like, explaining whatever it is you're explaining. So again, be thinking about at your site or at your department how these different aspects of a survey or a Google form would be helpful to you. If you're asking individuals to make a choice, kind of like what we're doing here to the left, we could do multiple choice. You can have checkboxes. You can have drop-down menus. You can do a whole bunch of different things, and we're going to take a look at some of those in just a second. So there it is. We have this one here, and as you can see, we already had another one that we added by simply clicking this button here. And when we see the blue line here, it shows us that we're in this working mode trying to set this up. But just click on this one, and then we can go to here and we can start doing some other choices. So maybe we want to check boxes. So it's kind of the same thing. So again, this is a choice that someone's filling out, and we can have as many of those as we want. And so you're just building this as you're going, and that's how you would do it, filling it out. It's as simple as that. And you'll notice that each time I'm working on one of these, there's that little icon. I can add an image. And then if I'm over here, I can add one there. And if I'm over here, I can add one here, and so on and so forth. The other thing I want you to notice is anytime you see these little 6 dots, and they will show up in different places, it simply means that you can move this around and quite easily. And where we see this again, if you look over here to the left, as I'm hovering my mouse over these different choices for the checkbox example, and you can see that. So if I want this one to go above and be at the top, I can simply move that around. And if there were a picture that was there with it, it would also move, because that's its own little entity. And so following along that same idea, if I wanted to, I could take this and put it above the one where the horse is, or I could move the one with the horse and put it above that one. And so already we can see that there's lots of ways that you can manipulate things. Down here, duplicate. If you happen to set up something that you're going to repeat because you're asking all these different questions, to parents and all that, then you can duplicate the slide. And I'll just go ahead and do that once. So now you have the exact same thing, kind of like a template, if you will, if that works for you. And then you could just change the choices for multiple choice here. Or if down here we're doing the check boxes, again, if we do the copy, then we get the whole nother section, and then we could just change the choices. So all we have to do is change the question. So again, you can see how very quickly you can start adding things and changing things. Maybe we don't want checkboxes in this one. If we want to change it to something else, you know, like a short answer. So right here we could say, what is your name? All right, and then there's a place where you get to answer. And again, those of you that filled out the form earlier, you got to see what that looks like in the real world. So a couple of things. Required, if you click on this, then there's going to be a little asterisk next to this, and they will not be able to go to the next section until that question is answered. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. We'll show an example of that. But then whenever you see these little 3 dots here anywhere, there's more options. So if you want a description or response validation, some interesting ideas, let's click on one. Okay. So underneath here, you can simply say, please put your full name, including middle name, something like that. So then people
I have a question for you.
You have a question? Yes, please.
I like that, that they're not able to move on to the next question until they answer that. Would we be able to do an attachment form that needs to be filled out to complete, and then they will be able to move on to the next question?
Interesting question. Let me see if I understand that correctly. So we've talked about uploading images and different things like that. So
would I be able to attach
like a PDF with more questions and a box on it or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah,
that they need to fill out, that they would be able to fill out and then complete and then move to the next one.
So here's the answer to that. I have not seen where you could do that. In fact, I'm not even certain I've seen where you can add the PDF. We'll have to keep poking around in here. But I'll tell you why I believe there's a better way to do that, and that's using the Google form here. Everything that's on that PDF, for example, that you want them to answer, and we'll see this as we get to the responses, as we end up on the spreadsheet, and how we can control all of this data and see it represented in multiple ways. If we take what's on that PDF, say there's 6 questions there, whatever those are, and we build them into our form, our survey, then we have a great deal of control. And yes, you can make each question, like in this case, your name. If you're asking about a email address or something like that, you can make all of those required, and they can't go to the next section until they do that. As far as having that done on a third-party PDF, which is not Google, and then bringing it in here and they have to somehow fill that out before they can go to the next section, I have not seen anywhere where that can happen. In fact, I'm pretty sure that you can't. But again, having said that, whatever that PDF is, whatever those questions are, you can build that right into your form in the section.
So here's my second question then. Yes. Would I be able to print out every single form that's filled out?
Great question. We'll have to explore that in just a moment when we get to the sample that we did. I know that it goes to you can send it to the Google Sheet, and you can have all of those answers there. And of course, that's printable. We'll have to poke around with that and see if we can do it by individual. I know you can see the answers by individual when we get to the responses section. In fact, I don't know if I can click on this, if it's even going to give us any information. Well, nothing, because it's not there yet. But we're going to see that on one that we've already done. And we'll kind of poke around and see what options we have as far as printing that out. We certainly can send it to a Google Sheet, which I'm going to demonstrate in a bit. And then we can print that out, of course. So we'll see when that happens. Those are great questions. Thank you for stopping me and asking those questions. So basically what I was just working on here is just showing you that there's just a number of different things that you can do, and it's just a matter of poking around and seeing what's available to see if that's going to work for you. And then, of course, over here, we talked about the different things that you can do with your little toolbar. And again, wherever you go, that toolbar is going to follow you. But whatever section you're working on, when you click on it, there'll be a little blue line that'll, let's click on that again. Okay, that's the one that you're working on. And so even though your toolbar is following you, you got to be careful what you're adding, because sometimes it'll put it right below up here, even though you're looking at something down below. But anyway, that's a lot of talking, just going in circles. So let's get to some real world examples. So I just wanted you to just have a brief introduction to what it looks like when you go to a brand new form. So let's get out of here. I'll leave that up there for now. So again, here's my today's folder, a couple things that I uploaded. And here's our first little practice one that we did. This was a template that we did, and so was that one, was also a template. So let's take a look at some that I've done already. And I'm going to go to, there it is. All right, so this is the one we're going to go to. Actually, we're going to go to this one first. So I'm going to click on this one. All right, so this is one, you can see our little butterflies working there. And again, I'm not sure why the other one, what was it, a guy with a basketball or something making baskets? That was a video loop. And when we opened it up, it wasn't showing, it wasn't playing. And again, I'm not sure exactly why. Might just be a memory issue. But this is one that I did some time ago. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I use this one to create, let's open up another one here, the For Fun form, which many of you filled out. And by the way, 12 of you have filled that out. I think at least one of them was me, so 11 more of you. So thank you for doing that. But this one here, and if you're seeing this for the first time because you haven't had a chance to look at the link that I sent you, just take a look at it. Section 1 of 4, short answer, we saw that before, short answer text. This is an interesting one. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Again, short answer. And then we had some, I'll just click on this. You can see this is checkboxes because that's what it tells us there. You can see that some images were added, some silly things. And if we click on this one, we can see this is the linear scale one, 1 to 5. And we'll take a look at all of this in just a second when it's fully open. But again, it came from this one. So just know that whenever you get one of these, maybe someone sent it to you. You could take the one that I've sent to you, and usually you can just make a copy of this. So again, when you see the little 3 dots like this, we call this the More button or whatever. Take a look at the things you can do here. So we can undo something we just did. We can make a copy of it. We can certainly throw it away. We can get a link to it. We can print it out. You're printing out just the form, mind you. Let's see, you could add collaborators. This means that if one of you is working with me and we're working on this in our department or at our site, or a couple of you, that's where we would go to add those. And if you spend any time with any of the Google apps, that's very easy to do, and just adding those collaborators. Script editor, this is like the stuff that, I guess, internet language or something. And then add-ons, that's those things that I don't add to any of the Google apps that I have because it can change the way things appear. And since I'm teaching classes, I want it all to be in its default form. So anyway, there's some options here. But by making a copy of this, and we could do this right now, watch what happens. So it's saying, all right, copy. What do you want to call it? It was called 12/16/2020 Google Forms training. That's our class today. And you'll notice it just simply put copy of in front of that. And it's showing me where it's going to go in Google Forms and all that, and that's okay. And if I had shared this with individuals already and I wanted to share this copy of it as well, I could click that. But I'm going to go ahead and click OK right there. And so now we're opening up another one. And if everything's working, our butterfly should start flying or flapping its wings. So again, it's the same as this one here, but it's a copy. And if I want to change this to anything at all, I can just simply triple click on that and then change the name. But for the sake of keeping things, making it less confusing, we're just going to leave the copy that's there. And as you can see, we're in our editing format. And by the way, if Mr. Jesperson is the owner of this one, the one that I had from class, and if I send this to you, when you see it, you may be able to have a place where you can copy that or whatever. There are, I haven't really explored this lately, what the options are, but when I share things in like Google Docs and Sheets and all that, there are some times where you can say, do not allow people to make copies of it because it might be something that has a copyright or something like that in it. And so we can change that. I have not explored that with this one, but I am assuming that you'll all be able to make a copy of this because I've been able to make a copy of pretty much anything that anyone's ever sent to me. So I'm guessing that that's what the case is. So once you get the copy, you are the new owner of it. And then you have complete ability to change anything you want. So basically what you're doing is you're taking someone else's hard work and good ideas that may be from a different department or different school, and at your school or your department, you're going to then put it to use for what you need. And so you'll simply just go in and start editing the different questions or different sections and how all of that works. So that's pretty cool. So what I did was, now I got all these windows open here. So I took this. Okay, there's the fun one. So I took this one here and I made a copy of it and I called it this for Fun Form 1216. So I took that same one and once I made a copy, I renamed it, and then I just started going at it and started changing stuff. So again, if I wanted to change the header, up here is where you can do that. And I uploaded an image. I just chose one of the ones that were in that gallery that Google provides. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. We are fishing for fun responses because when I've taught this class in the past, I felt a little guilty of showing the responses of individuals. And we're going to get to that in just a second because there's personal information that's on there, like what school site, do you work at? What's your email? And all these different things. And I just felt funny about having that personal information out there. So yesterday, again, I just copied this from the regular one and changed the name of it and started changing some of the appearance, changed the color of different things. And we've already looked at that, how we can do that so quickly by clicking on all of these things. Because I was making it for fun, I decided to use the playful font style. But if I wanted to, I could go back and I could change it to that, or I could change it to basic, which is the way it usually comes out. Are there a lot of choices? No, but there are some choices. And again, this keeps evolving. And it's, again, sometimes, or in the past, I was able to upload straight off the internet and just do a Google search. Now I have to go do my Google searches over here. I got to find a picture that I like. I have to save it, make sure it's a JPEG so that it actually works with this, and then put it in a folder somewhere on my hard drive. And then I can upload it to my Google Drive or whatever. And so it takes a little bit longer. So things will change as you use this because, again, Google's always making changes for one reason or another. So let's take a look at this. So at the beginning part up here, it says Google Forms personal information and a little bit about our training place at the IMC. And I asked for full name, email, department, or school. When I changed it, I just said, give a pretend fake name, be creative, like Fred J. Flintstone. And we see this little dot here, which makes that required. In fact, why don't we just go straight to where it looks. So when you got this and you're filling it out, this is what you saw. And we can see that the answer goes here. And there's some cool things. Watch this. So if I put down here my answer, and I'm just going to pretend I'm doing something, I'm going to put that answer in, and then I try to go to the next one. Must be a valid email address. All right. Well, if that's true, then why does fflintstone@sandy.net work? And in fact, in the description that I added to this section, any creative name you can think of followed by @sandy.net at the end will work. And that is because there's a validation feature that's in this that we'll see in a moment when we go back into the editing mode, where it has to have an @ symbol and then a dot something. And so it just simply on those parameters alone recognizes whether or not this is an email or looks like an email. No, it's not going to somehow figure out if fflintstone@sandy.net really exists. It's not doing that. It's simply looking for the parameters of the @ symbol and maybe the dot something at the end. So that's kind of cool. So let's see if we can do that. So I don't know, @slate, since we're on that theme, .com. Let's see if it accepts that. We'll go down to the next one. So it did. So again, it just was looking for the parts that will represent an email. So that's pretty cool. making someone not just throw in anything, and maybe they don't know that you can fake it out that way, but that's one of the things that you can do to try and get people to put the correct answer there. So then pretend department, whatever it is, you could do that. And this is kind of neat. We have this little section down here. It's showing, and we don't have that in the, let's go over to here. We don't have that in the, I guess, the more professional one or whatever. It's only in the pretend one that we did that, and we'll show how to do that. And then if you try to go next, it's going to say, you got to put your answer there. You know, what is your name? And so it's forcing you to do that. So be thinking about in your department how that would work for you. So I'm going to jump out of this and go back to this one so we can take a look at that. So again, here we have our little section here, and this is our short answer, because that's what we decided. If for some reason you wanted to make it a long answer, it's as simple as changing it to paragraph. Or maybe we want to change the section and make it into checkboxes or a drop-down menu, or all of these different choices that are available to you. It's just a matter of what will work for you. And how did I get this picture here? I simply went up to here, so where it says add image, and I clicked on it, and I searched on the internet and found a little picture of Fred Flintstone. And guess what? I can't make that any smaller. Let's see what this one is here. So it's going to allow me to move it to the left. I can center it. Oh, that's interesting. This is not something that we had available to us before. Change, remove, add a caption. That's kind of cool. Some different things that we can do. Again, these features were not here just a year or two ago, and now they're adding it, which is kind of neat. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back to where it was, just because that's how we had it. But I want you to notice that no matter how much I tried to make that smaller, I couldn't. And I don't know what's driving that. It might have to do something with the file size. But as you saw in our professional one, when we go down there, we see these little pictures here. Those I were allowed to shrink and make larger or whatever. But for some reason, this one didn't do that. And again, I don't know why. I can make it bigger, but that's certainly kind of crazy and not helpful. So I made it as small as I could, but could not make it any smaller. Wait, now it's doing it. Don't tell me it's doing this. No, okay, I made it to the smallest point. Yeah, very strange. But those are things that are driving, making things happen behind the scenes that aren't always explained to us, and we can make some guesses as to why. But that's it. So we talked about the pluses and minuses of forms. Yeah, it's limited. We only have a couple different font styles. Wouldn't it be great if, like in Docs, we had 500 different fonts that we could use? Wouldn't it be great, like in Sheets and Docs, where we could add custom colors and all of that? Well, actually, we can right here. Okay, well, that's pretty cool. I actually didn't see that before. So we can move things around. This might be a little bit harder to deal with than. Let's try that, see what happens. Okay, so we changed it a little bit. That's pretty slick. But I like in Docs and in Sheets, where it just gives you a big palette and you can select any of those. But that's a wonderful thing. There we go. Background color. It's not going to allow you many choices beyond that, but there you go. So let's talk about these answers. So I made it required by simply checking that box right there. And so if we go down, and let's just see what the ellipsis says here. Response validation. We're going to see that in just a second. So here's this section on the email. All right, like fflintstone@sandy.net. Any creative name you can think of, followed by @sandy.net at the end will work. Thank you in advance for being creative. So I wrote that out, and the description is simply this part here. If I uncheck that, then that part will disappear. Here's where they're going to put their answer. Now look at this. Here's the response validation. If I unselect that, all of the stuff that was here goes away. But I'm going to go back and say response validation. And so there's a number of different things that you can do. Sorry, I just used the word number. If it's a number, our choices are that you can make it greater than, and you can choose the number that's greater than, or equal to, or less than. A little bit confusing unless we find an actual real world example of that. But it allows you to make some of those choices in the numbers. But we're going to go look at text. So here we go for text. And so the text has to contain what? It has to contain Email address. So if it has to contain an email address, that's why it's asking for the @ something dot something. And so that's what it's looking for. And by simply adding that there, that means when we go back to the trying to fill it out, it won't work until we put the @ and then I believe the .com or something like that. Actually, let's try it without the dot and see if it will accept that. Look at that. Must be a valid email address. So it's going to make me go in there and do a .com. What if I put a couple C's in there? Just checking this out. And so basically when things are changing on you all the time, it's going to be impossible to understand perfectly how something's working if it's always being modified and changed at the other end, in this case, Google in the cloud. And so what we're demonstrating here is simply just trying to poke around and figure out how things work. So again, it's not checking to see if it's a .com, because clearly that's wrong. It just wants the dot, which was what I was assuming because I'd seen that before. And then it wants the @ symbol. If you take out either one of those, then it's not going to work. So that's pretty cool. So let's go back over to here. And that's how you do it, by getting a response validation. That's pretty slick. And then of course down here, we just said, pretend department, whatever it is, and you have a short answer option. If we wanted to, again, we could make it a longer one. I haven't checked the short answer to see what the limit is, but 150 characters is something sticking in my head. And again, that's something you could play with and figure out if it's going to meet your needs. But again, I made it required. All right. So the next section that was there, in fact, we'll go back to this. So I have to do an answer. This was the name. You type in Fred Flintstone or whatever. There's no validation check on that, so it's not going to care if there's 2 names or 1 name or what. What department, be creative. I could, put something in here. We're going to see some of your great answers. And then I'm going to go to next, and it takes us to this next section. So again, we still see the header up top, and it still has this like title, Google Forms Practice, Pretend Personal Information, We Are Fishing for Fun Responses. And so this next section is, what is your pretend role in the district? Select any category below or be very creative and select other and show us something clever. All right. So again, I copied this from this one here. And in fact, I should probably open this up so we can see it in its full glory. And you'll notice that none of these are, I didn't make any of these where you had to fill it out or required. And the reason I did that is so that I could go and I can check on next sections and see what things look like and demonstrate that without taking the time to actually fill all of that out. So again, this is what it looked like before. And there was an other. It's right there. It's this last of the 6 spaces. It kind of spaced it out that way. So let's go look at our fishing for fun responses. So there it is. It looks exactly the same because, again, I copied this one and I added one more. I went and got an image of Bedrock and I thought, okay, Bedrock Elementary School, Wilma Flintstone, Principal Pro Tem. That's pretty cool. And then so some of you have selected other, or maybe you selected one of these in our little pretend form. And we're going to see those responses. And by the way, here's the questions we're working on. Here's responses. We're now up to 14. And we're going to get back to that in a second. But I just wanted, since we have about 85 people, I think, signed up for this class, and not everyone has seen this, so I just want everyone to have a chance to see what we did and changed and how it looks. So then we have these silly questions. How often do you use Google Forms? Just like in the other one, except for I changed it to once every 10 years. I thought that was entertaining. And once every 10 seconds. Do you have a question?
No.
No question. No problem. And I will just go back, excuse me for a moment. There we go. All right. So again, we have these silly questions that we just changed. This is the same linear form that we saw in this one here. How often you use Google Forms. For some reason, I forgot the question marks on this. I apologize. I never use it. There's a 1. Maybe once in a while is a 3, and I use it every day. It would be a 5. And you can actually change that by going in there. And when you click on that section, then you can choose from 1 to 5. You can make it 1 to 10 if you want, so you can have a more finite response. I thought that 5 was plenty. And then when I had copied this in the Fred Flintstone one, we'll go down here, I'm in my edit mode, and I clicked on this one. I was just simply could change, instead of once in a while and often or every day or whatever the answer was in the other one, I just simply changed it to once every 10 years. And so as you can see, that's what it looks like. And so I got some great responses from you all. And you get down to the end of this section, you can see we're halfway done. So we have a couple more sections. And so we go to the next one. Again, we still see our header at the top. We have our title, we're fishing for fun responses. And so we have this next little section here. It says, how can San Diego Unified help you with your pretend work? And then it'll remind you that this is for fun. So what pretend training would you like to see? And I saw some great answers. Again, we're gonna look at those in just a moment. Then we get to the next one, and it says, what I would like to be when I grow up. And again, I saw some great responses. When I grow up, I want to be, and then you get to put your answer in there. And then if I were to submit this right now, it would actually be part of my responses. And because I haven't filled this out properly, I'm actually not going to do that. But going back to when we were building this, by simply just clicking on any one of these sections, I can change whatever I want. Again, like in the linear scale one, I can do it, 1 through 6, 1 through 7, 1 through 10. Kind of like 1 through 5, it's a little less cluttered. And then let's take a look at here. After section 2, continue to next section. So you have options. And this right here is where you can do some remarkable things. And I haven't had a chance to make this, but I was thinking, if you're whether it's a department or a school site, you might have a form that parents are filling out. And if you are one of those schools where you have, say, 2 or 3 or sometimes 5 different languages represented, your very first section at the top, after it says fill out your name and your address maybe, or your phone number, contact information or something, that or actually even before that, it might say which language do you prefer to use? And you might have, say Tagalog, Francais, Espanol, English, all these different options. And when you click on that, and you could make it a mandatory question by making it required by simply clicking that required thing down at the bottom, then you can determine which section they're going to go to next. And so that's where you would do it down at the bottom. You could say, if you click this answer, then this is where you're going to go, and so on and so forth. And you can set it up for languages that way. And that way you can get people to fill things out in their own language. So that's pretty slick. I'll have to work on that and get that set up so I can show that to you. All right, so what of it? So here it is. We looked at it. This is when we're making it, and we have lots of choices there, and we could spend hours just going over all the different choices. But this is what it looks like at the very end. And of course, if you're able to go back, go back up to the top and see different things. But let's
Dad,
go.
quick
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Do we have to have that translated to the specific language, or does Google do it for us?
Oh, great question. We had a question like this when we were doing our Google Drive training. And when we were in Google Drive, we went to settings and we went to language. And we actually, for one of our students who English is their second language and it's somewhat new to them, English, they're struggling with it a little bit, and they actually spoke French fluently. And we were able to change it for Drive so that up here, instead of my drive, like in Spanish, for example, it would be, I don't know what that would be. Me drive, I have no idea. But everything over here was also in French. So using that knowledge there, let's go back and see if we can go here. So now we're in our form here, and maybe we have a section. My guess is if you're going to do this in a language, it's going to be the entire form. I don't know that you're going to be able to do it by section other than typing it in yourself. But just real quick, so general settings, collect email responses, blah, blah, blah. you know what, I haven't seen anywhere on there. I've looked at all these pages and nowhere does it say, you know, language for that. Having said that, if you were in your drive, which is kind of like your main, I'll click cancel there and get rid of that. Your drive is where all of your different Google apps reside. And so I would imagine if you end up changing up here the language, in this case to French, the example I was giving, then when you go to open up a Google form, it's actually going to say Google form, and whatever the French word for forms is, it's going to be there, and whatever the words are for blank form, it's going to be in French. And I would imagine as you're building it out and you're actually working on your form, like question is respuesta in Spanish, can't remember, responses. It's all going to be in French as you build this out, but that means that when you hover over something, instead of adding question, it's going to be, you know, whatever the French or Spanish or whatever one you're working in is that. So no, to answer your question then, by just poking around with this just a little bit, I don't know that there's a way to take a section and translate that straight over. Having said that, every question that you have in here, you can select it and then maybe go to like a Google web page or something and say, translate into French, and then you have what you want to translate, and you might be able to find a place to do that. I just know I haven't done that in a few years, but trying to just do direct translations from one language to another, it can get a little messy, a little confusing. It sort of works, but I don't think anything will be better than having a native speaker help you figure out how to ask those questions in Tagalog and write them out, and then simply copying and pasting those into the different sections. For example, you don't have to speak Tagalog to be able to have a little section where someone says, please write down your full name, and they put that in Tagalog for you. You copy it off your, you know, say a document, a Google Docs or something where you have all those things listed, and then you just paste it right there in that section that is for Tagalog. If I'm saying that right, I might not be pronouncing that name right. But anyway, that's what I would say you'd have to do at that point. So great question. And again, it's one of those things where you're going to have to poke around and just use your previous experience to see if that's going to work. So let's talk about these questions. So I have 4 sections in here, and you fill out one section, you go to the next, and so on and so forth. And at the beginning, you were not, because I made these required, and again, you see the little required button there. And how do we do that? We just simply click that. If it's like this, and we go back to the next one, and we're looking down, then we don't see that asterisk anymore because I simply deselected it. So if I want to make it required, I just do that. And then they cannot go to the next section until they do the required ones or whatever. So just something about that. When you're practicing and you want to see what this looks like, and you go up and you hit the preview button. And so that's what we already have here. And you're trying to get from section to section. Actually, and I had already gone way forward, so let's do a couple backs. All right, that looks like the beginning one. So when you're trying to see how it works and you want to see it in your preview mode, which is what this is, no longer do we have our little editing tools here. And again, we said that that's how you can turn those on by hitting that little edit button down at the bottom. When you're trying to see how this works and you go to the next section, if these answers aren't there, any one of them, it's not going to allow you to go. So why is that significant? Well, as you're building this out, you may want to deselect all of the requireds so that when you're just trying to preview it and go through it, you don't have to answer all of these questions just to see what the next section looks like. So that's a helpful tip. And I actually learned that by watching a video on how to do this a couple of years back. And someone said, that's a helpful tip. And I said, by golly, that is a great tip. But of course, we want to keep these. Which one did I deselect? Was it this one? It still looks like they're all required. Okay, but anyway, it's as simple. Oh, maybe it was this one. Nope, that one's required too. All right, so here we are. We're still in the we're in the formatting mode, or we can start making changes. We can edit things. We can add things, so on and so forth. But look up here. It says responses. Here's where we're going to see the power of what it is we've created. And by the way, I have a number of ones that I have sent out to individuals in the past. that are the real deal with real answers. And again, people would put their personal information in there, you know, where they work, information about how they use different things in the district, the different Google apps or whatever. And I always felt a little funny when I went to, this is just a copy I made, so there's no answers to it, but I felt funny about showing people's names with their responses and all of that. So again, I simply just went and here we are. I went and made all this fun and pretend. And so it looks like we have 14 responses. So let's take a look at that. Here's where the power comes in of Google Forms. And this is why I shared with you it's way better than what Word has, just because of the information collection ability. So we're going to take a look at this. All right, so again, we have 14 responses and we're in the summary mode. There's a question by question and there's an individual one. And now you can see why, if this was real information, this could be a little sensitive. If we're broadcasting this on a video, that could be sent out to just about anyone. So here's the full pretend fake name. Be creative like Fred J. Flintstone. We got 14 responses. Let's take a look at a few of them. Barney B. Rubble. I will just tell you that I made that one. And also I Am Superman, because I wanted to have a couple in there in case people didn't have a chance to do this. But somebody came up with Kondrak J. Murphelstock. I like that. Miss Space Cadet Smurfette, Abby Kadabi, that's cute. Blue Sky, a whole bunch of these down here, all of these different, Ruth Badger Ginsburg, that's great. And then Candy Consumer, all right, well done. So these are all the fake names that came in. And of course, if this was at your site and you're trying to collect information from parents and you made these responses mandatory, you would get their names. Hopefully they filled it out correctly and you'll get the correct spelling of all of their names. And now you have it here in this responses section under the summary. So let's take a look at the rest of the summary. So let's go down here. So pretend email. So I did brubble, sandy.net, I am Superman, sandy.net. And so we can see that we got some clever different ones, 100 and counting. That's great. Well done, everyone. And if this is something where we have 500 responses because we're at maybe say a high school, and we've got 2,200 students or something, then it's all going to be listed out there. And as you can see, we can just, it'll keep them all there and we can use the elevator bar to go through it. So pretend department, I put Bedrock Elementary, aka Mr. Slate's, whatever, kind of silly. And I like this one, the Department Redundancy Department. And we got all these other ones down here. Change You With No Clue, The Lost Village, Sandy Beach Elementary, Topaz Elementary, all kinds of great answers there. Awesome. So again, if this was a department and you're sending out information, you're trying to collect from various, employees throughout the district, and you want to know what department they're coming from, then you're going to get the responses that'll be there. But again, we made this silly so that we're not going to be dealing with any personal information. So what is your pretend role in the district? Let's take a look at this. So if you recall, and let's go back to here, and no, I gotta see again because it's required. I can't even get to the next section. So here is the section. What is your pretend role in the district? And you had these choices: preschool, elementary, middle, high, district offices, Bedrock Elementary, or other. So let's go back to where we were. So it looks like one person said preschool, 6 or more, 46.2% of the respondents said elementary school. Interesting. Looks like 1 from middle school, 0 from high school. We had 1 from Bedrock, Kryptonite Charter School, Sunray Collector, and I would imagine there's a few more there, maybe not. Out of the 14 respondents, I guess some selected ones that were already there, and some wrote down the other category, which is like the Kryptonite Charter School was the one that I added for the Superman one. And so there they are, and it's all kind of displayed out right there. And this is interesting, copy chart. All right, maybe we want to print this. So this is one of those things that you can actually print straight off. So how often do you use Google Forms? 37.7% of those 14 respondents, or 5, gave it, oh, I'm sorry. Remember the choices, it was 1 through 5. So this is use it once every 10 years, if you recall, or use it every 10 seconds. And so these are the number of individuals that, and again, we're in the summary mode. So it's not doing individual answers. It's just showing you the collection of all 14. So that's pretty cool. So you can start to see how you can collect a lot of data here, depending on what your questions are. And you can see how many people are answering in different ways. So if this were the real deal, and I was asking how often do you use Google Drive, and it said never, or almost every day, or something like that, then we get an indication of where in the district people are as far as their using of the Google apps, right? So be thinking about your department and what you would put down there. So again, this was just silly with the once every 10 years and once every 10 seconds answers, and you could see what different groups or different individuals out of the 14 had done for those questions. So then we go to the next one. How can San Diego Unified help you with your pretend work? We have 12 responses. So that's interesting because this wasn't required. Not all 14, maybe they put their name, maybe they put their email address, something like that. They didn't get to this part and they didn't fill this part out. So we have 12 that are here. And I wish we had more time. We could read through all of your great answers, but these are some great answers that I see here. So where should I start first? Do I really need to do this again? Can you repeat again, please? That's awesome. Thank you. So that's what someone wrote. Someone else said how to ice dance while swimming with my dog. Fantastic. I would like a training on Google form or sheet that reads my mind, and this would help me focus on my other 20,000 distractions. Beautiful. How to climb a tree, use a magic wand, all of that. I put up here just how to fish for more creative responses to make this class more entertaining or whatever. Oh, and then the Superman, how to avoid accidental contact with kryptonite so I can get more work done. So again, all of those answers that came through there, and thank you for taking the time to do that. If anybody wants a collection of any of these, maybe I could share them with the class. In fact, why don't we do that right now? That'd be a great exercise, wouldn't it? So let's go up here to, let's find the share feature. Let's see how we're gonna do this. It's a little bit different in each app. So here we go, add collaborators. All right, so I'm about to make all of you all collaborators where you're going to have control over this, at least to be able to see it and work on it. In fact, I'm going to make you editors, and I would just ask that you be responsible with that. Don't go in and destroy this. If you want to copy it for your own purposes or whatever, go ahead and make a copy of it. But I'm going to make you all editors. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to go back to my drive, and I'm going to go to, there we go. Sorry, this just take me a second to do this. This is where I have all my secret files with all my different classes. And today, this is you all. And so if I just go, bam. So this is how I do it. You might have a department with, 25 people that you're, dealing with. Maybe you're a school site, you're sending stuff out to teachers. You have a list of that. Maybe you're a school site and you've got 2,500 sets of parents out there representing all of the different students. And so this might be a lot more than, what does that say, 85 people. It might be a lot more, that doesn't matter. But I simply have this list here that I got off of ERO, so I can send you all emails and so on and so forth. So I've just simply right-clicked on that and copied it. And then I can go back to my form and say add editors. And by the way, when you're sharing stuff, you do have some options. Editors can change permissions and share. That's cool. And if you make someone a viewer, you can say, if the box is checked, viewers and commenters can see the option to download, print, and copy. So you know what? I'm going to make you all viewers. Why? Because then you can simply copy it, and then you're going to have complete control of it. You're going to own it. And so I'm just going to leave those the way that is. But when I go here and I do this, let's see, find the spot. Gotta click on it the right way so it says paste, because there we go. I don't know why it does that. I notice every time I'm trying to share a video with you all, I have to click or right click on it many times until it finally says paste, but let's do this. So bam, so it's already filled in all 85 of you right there. Okay. There you all are. Instead of editors, I'm going to make you, well, that's interesting. It's not allowing me to make you do view only. I guess the only option is editor, which I guess sort of makes sense. If I'm going to share all this with you, all right, well, let's go with that. So then I could put a message in here or whatever. And I'll just say send. So depending on what you have set up in your Google Drive as far as notifications, and if you come to our Drive class, we'll show you how to do that. Or I could just go in here real quick. When you go into settings in your Google Drive, and let's get back to regular Google Drive so it doesn't look so confusing. You can go into settings, and then there's a couple different categories in settings. I can go to notifications, and you could say get updates in your browser or get updates in an email, and that's the one that I have selected. So if I was on that list and I just shared it as a collaborator, what we were working on, in this case, this right here, then I would have got an email notification that I put right here. So making sure all of these Google sent notifications come to one spot so that I can find them and be able to deal with it that way. So going back to where we were, there's so much more to this, and this is where the real power lies. Yes, we've seen that you can go in and you can change the way things look. You can add pictures. You could do all these different things, change the way that you ask questions. You could add videos. You can add all these different things. But at the end of the day, it's the responses where the power is. And so we're just kind of going through this again. Let's see if we get all the way down to the end. And again, depending on what kind of question is asked, whether it's multiple choice, or in this case, it's the linear scale 1 to 5, you're going to get a different appearance here. Let's get down to the bottom. All right. What would you like to be when you grow up? Great. Much older, retired. The one who shears the most sheep so I can be the first to spin into yard. That's great. Peace. Wonderful. Some great answers and responses there. Thank you for putting that all down there. A helpful person. Wonderful. So again, we're in the responses section, but we're in the summary. So now we can do this way. Question. Interesting. And I was checking this out yesterday and I was pretty impressed with this. So full pretend fake name, be creative. Let's see. So if we go back to the first one, full name, we see that Miss Space Cadet, or that's one of the responses. Someone said blue sky, summer America. So this is interesting. It doesn't appear to be in alphabetical order. I was looking at this earlier and I'm not sure how you can change this, but Barney B. Rubble, there's a Banjo Centenarian, that's pretty awesome. All these great names. So there they are, all listed out, every one of them. And again, that's the first of 11 questions. And instead of a summary, we're doing it question by question. So I can either click it there to get to the next one, and we're going to see that here. Let's see what that is. So there's all of the questions. So I could just jump to whichever one I want to if I'm interested in seeing the responses from a particular part. You could do it that way, or you could be scrolling ahead this way, where I notice at the bottom, you have another way to do it, which is right here. And so the next one was, if you remember, the email addresses. So we could see all of the different answers that are there. That's pretty cool. And then, we can go through each one of those questions and we see the different responses listed out by questions. And we could see where, people said preschool, elementary school, middle, Bedrock Elementary, one response. And so you're just able to collect some data that way. Let's go straight to individual. And again, this is why I appreciate very much you filling out, those of you that did, the 14 respondents to our For Fun form that we did, because then when we get to individual, we can see how this works. So B. Rubble, Sandy.net wrote down this information right here. What is your pretend role? We can see what the response was. Bedrock Elementary, groundskeeper. Almost put groundskeeper Willie, but I didn't want to confuse it. And then here are the individual answers for Barney B. Rubble right there. So going by individual. And when I grow up, I want to be much older. Wonderful. And so let's see, I can go to the next one, which is another one that I did. Let's pick Lucky 7, just see who that is. All right, so number 7 filled that out and they wrote, Tweetbird at sandy.net. Sandy Beach Elementary is where they work. Let's see if they put other. Sunray Collector. Okay, we can see Tweetbird or whatever that was. There's the responses. How to climb a tree will help to view matters in a different perspective. That's fantastic. Greatest aspirations. When I grow up, I want to be a bee. Fantastic. So again, we can go through individuals and we can check each one of them one at a time and see what they responded to and how they did it. Summer America in the middle of nowhere. And you can see all of their answers one at a time. In fact, oh yeah, this one, they did check elementary school. And I was just going to say, if they did not fill something out, then here's one to put all those in there. That's great. Totally away from this computer. That's awesome. So there you go. But wait, there's more. So again, here's the questions that we were editing, and we were changing colors and making things look different and so on and so forth. We could do all that. But when we got to the responses, we not only had the summary version, where we got to see all of the answers from everyone in one section for each of the questions, or we saw, in this case, where do you work? That was question number 4. And then you see all the different responses. 6 people said elementary school, 1 said preschool, and you kind of see it that way. And then when we get to individual, then we can go through, in this case, 14 respondents and find out exactly what each individual said. And that's great. But I just said, wait, there's more. And there is. All you have to do is click on this, and let's see if it gives us, there it is, view responses in sheets. So the first time you do this, it's going to allow you, it's going to give you some options of, you know, do you want to put this on a sheet that already exists? So maybe this is a questionnaire, and this would work for me. If every single class I have, whether it's Google or Google Apps or Microsoft Office, I might have a questionnaire that I send to people and have them fill out. And so I don't want to have for every class that I do. And as you saw with our calendar, I'm going to have 62 or 64, I think it was, different classes. I may not want 64 different spreadsheets, right? So what I may do when I select on this one is say, you know, send it to a certain one, and then I can tell it where to go, or I can just create a brand new one. And so let's see if this takes me to where I was before. All right, so there we go. So as you can see, I already looked at this and made sure that it had the right title on it and all of that, so I knew what it was. And I have that in my my Google Drive where I wanted it to be. So here's what we need to know is that when someone responds, then it tells us exactly when that happened. So at 10:16:33, that's when I did that one. And then 10:59, just before 11, I did the I Am Superman one. And then it looks like this morning, because we see the dates different, that each of these individuals, and let's see if anyone was doing it while class was going on. Aha, we caught you. So just know that there's a timestamp that comes in. And it used to be, and I don't know why they changed this, but I believe this is accurate, that it used to be that it automatically collected your real sandy.net email address. And so again, when you're in your sandy.net Google domain drive with all of the different apps, everywhere you go, the domain administrator can see what it is you're doing. And so when a couple of years ago when I was doing this, the email address was just showing up every time. But I want you to notice that, let's see where I can, I've got so many parts that I'm opening up here. Anyway, there's a place in there where you can say that, email address is required. And all it does is throw up a little box in there that says email address. Whereas before, I believe it was automatic. Now you have to add that and then put it in there. Of course, we just made this, or I made this, and put those parameters on it. I'm in the responses section. So there we go. There it was. And so again, we put the parameters on there for response validation, and we said it's text, and we want it to show up like an email address, and they had to do that. And so that's the way that we did it. But if we went and trying to remember where that was, where we add that, can't think of where it is, but I might think of it a little bit later. There's a button, maybe it's over here. Not sure where it was, but somewhere over there is where you can say collect email addresses. And so all it does is pop up right underneath the very beginning. It pops up a little section where it says collect them. Let's see if we can find that. Nope, not there. All right, so back to our spreadsheet. So again, here we are in Google Sheets, and here's all of the answers. And so it automatically gives you a timestamp. And then this is the section on names. And so here's all the different names that the individual respondents put on there. And then here was the email addresses, so we have that. So again, if you're collecting data, doing a survey for whatever purpose, you now have columns. And so if you need a list of all of the names, in this case, let's say this is parents that you're soliciting this information from, then you can copy all of that and move it to another Google Sheet somewhere, or whatever, where you're collecting those names or information about them, whichever one that you want to get to. So let's take a look. Here's all of the different questions. Where do you work? You know, all the different responses, they're all there. What pretend training would you like to see? All right, so we just saw what this question was here and it disappeared. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Perhaps it's a memory thing. Don't know. All right, but anyway, as we can see, all of the answers to every question that we asked in, let's find where we were, in this form that we sent out, every respondent that answered, and we saw, let's go here, our responses that are here that we were able to look at by individual, by question, by summary, all those different ways are now loaded onto this, this Google Sheet. And so we have it all in one place. And again, as I said before, when you get to that point where you're going to ask for this, the first time you do it, let's see if it does it right now. No, because I've already opened this one up. And so it's not giving me that option. It's just taking me to the one that I've already opened. So that's why we do some practice ones. Let's see. That's not it. I'm going to try and find it.
I have a question.
Yes.
You have the print option and you're able to view the individual responses. Would we be able to print the individual responses along with the questions?
Okay, great question.
Or is it just it will just be printing the answers?
We'll go take a look at that and see how that works, because I actually haven't done that before. But I just wanted to see this one that we made today. We actually don't have any responses, so it's probably not even going to let me do this, but I just wanted to show what this option was. Okay, so create a new spreadsheet, and it's guessing what the name is going to be because of our title already, or select, there it is, select an existing spreadsheet. So again, if you're collecting data and having people fill it out, like in my case, collecting data from everyone that takes one of my mini courses, and I want to collect that data all on one particular place and not have a brand new one for every single class. And again, next quarter, I have 64 courses set up. That would be a lot of spreadsheets. I could have it all collected on one spreadsheet, and I would just simply click that and that would be there. So let's go back to where we were. So our responses. So let's see, your question, I believe, was, can you print out each question with the answers or by individual? Could you repeat that question? I apologize.
No, the individually, can you print out an individual
Let's find out. Great question.
Question answer form?
There's the print response. So let's see. I'm going to click that in just a second, but let me find one that's which one? 10. Let's go to the oh, these are the actual individuals, not the question. Okay, so you did say individuals, right? So this is Mary Mermaid. That's that one particular person, and here's all of the answers that Mary Mermaid gave, all the way down to here, a better swimmer, a Disney cast member. Okay, so those are all the answers that Mary Mermaid did, and we'll go back up here and it says print responses. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm not going to start printing because there's going to be a print preview. So let's see what that looks like. So if I want, I could save the answers as a PDF apparently, or I can go to the printer I have here in my home office. But this is what it's going to look like. So that's a great question. So apparently it's going to print out, and this must be one of 5 pages. There it is. And so this is kind of cool. It has the date of when we did this, or maybe when the response came in, I'm guessing. And then Google Forms practice, pretend personal information. We are fishing for fun responses. That's the title of our forum. So that's going to be on there. And then here's the individual question. And then there's the answer. And what's interesting is it's including the picture and all of that. That's kind of fascinating. And then the next page, again, with the header and also a footer down there, there's a URL for where all this is available online. Because again, this is not on your computer. We're in a browser. We're working in the cloud or the Google Server Farms if you prefer. And there's every answer down there, that Merry Mermaid, if I got that name remembered right, and also the responses. But what's curious to me is that it's actually giving, it's showing, I should say, what the question actually looked like. In this case, we had all these different pictures and different boxes available. That could be helpful. Why not? That'd be a very large thing to print out. And obviously, if all of these things had pictures everywhere, if you're trying to print that out, even in black and white, would take up a lot of ink. But to answer your question, yes, for the individuals, you can print that out, and that's what that would look like all the way to the end. When I grow up, I want to be a better swimmer or a Disney cast member. I'm guessing, and if you're the individual that did this and you're willing to out yourself, you may notice at the end that you had options to go back and change answers or add answers, or even do this again and start off with a whole new identity and answer it as someone else. And you'd show up as the 15th or 16th or 17th. As many times as you did it, you'd be, another respondent for this. But I'm guessing this one, since there's 2 answers here, might have come back and then just added something more. If that was you, maybe you could share with us how you did that. That's interesting. But that's the individual one, and that's a print preview. So I'm going to say cancel because I don't want to print that out. So let's look at by the question. I don't see any options for printing there. How about summary? You'd think the summary would have it. Again, where do we see the individual one? Okay, so this popped up and allowed us to do each response, but we don't have that option unless it's down below somewhere. We don't have that option for printing, so that's interesting. You can do the individual one, but you can't do, question by question or the whole summary, apparently. So that's quite curious why they did that. But maybe it's just because we want to be able to print out what one person did and put that in their file or something. So think about it. If you're at a school site and your job is for collecting maybe health information on, a student that's in your school. And so the parent fills out, this form that you did. Obviously you wouldn't have Fred Flintstone there, but you'd have these other things, and you probably wouldn't even have all of these pictures and things. It would just be just the questions themselves. That would make more sense. And once that parent fills it all out, you get the response, of course. And as you look through it and you find the one, the parent that just did it, maybe it's number 7 on the list or whatever. Bring it back to 7. Come on. And then when you get that response, so why isn't that not changing? Then you would presumably be able to go and then collect their data, print it out, and put it in their file. So there's a real world example of what you can do. And again, if you were doing that, you wouldn't want to have all these pictures, of course, because that's just going to take up more space. But that's a great way to do it. And I guess it does make sense to do it individually. And as far as the summary and all that other stuff, we have in our Google Sheet the option to then go and change that.
What option was it giving you on the hamburger button?
Say that one more time. I didn't hear it.
Next to the Excel sheet or the Google Excel, there was the hamburger button. What option was that giving you?
This one here?
Yeah.
All right. So get email notifications for new responses. Pardon me?
I was just reading this. It's at the bottom. Print all responses.
Ah, well, that's interesting. So there it is. Print all responses. See, so again, this is something that they're always upgrading, and whatever you see now, it may be different in a week, it may be different in 3 months or whatever. I had looked at this before and I don't remember seeing that one there, but that's fine. So this right here, just so you all know, download responses, and this is comma separated value. All that means is it's taking or allowing you to have a form that you can then paste into something like Excel. That's what comma separated value is. It just means it's going to break it up into cells so that when you look at it, it's going to look like that. So, all right. We have gone through a lot of different things. And so print all responses, that's great. Let's just go ahead and look at it and see what that would look like. And again, 70 pages. So it's going to take a minute to put in there. There it is. Thank you for helping me find that. Yikes. So it's going to do just like we saw in the individual, but it's going to do it for all 14 respondents is what it looks like. And that is quite a few. So great question. But that is a huge file. And as you see here in our preview mode, it's going to go through every single student and it's going to look like that, which I guess makes sense. You're getting the entire group, or in this case, all 14 respondents at the same time. So I'm going to hit cancel there. That's the summary. If we do the question thing, is that going to change the way that looks? Probably not. It's going to be exactly the same way. So again, 70 pages. Yep, it's loading. It's going to do exactly the same way. So at this point, I'm just going to say thank you for coming to learn with us today. As time goes on, we're going to come up with more real world examples of how to do this. I will try and do one with the languages and showing how that works. But learning how to work with using forms is just a matter of poking around. And again, anytime you see one of these little 6 dots there, that means you can move something around and slide it around, and you can do the same thing for individual things. You can change one from one area to the other. There's lots of things you could do. There's colors, and of course we can do our custom colors and all that. There's only 4 different font styles that you can do, but at the end of the day, the most powerful aspect of this is the fact that you can collect the data from whatever it is you're doing on your survey. And again, you can then save it to a Google Sheet. And if you wanted, you can copy and paste this into Excel if that was more your liking. In fact, we saw that over here where we download everything as a CSV file. That's in the format that you can then just paste it straight into at Microsoft Excel if that's where you like to work. So
I have another question.
yes.
So I see that at the Excel, you can see the time and date it's posted as to when the person submitted the
timestamp.
form, the timestamp. So you could see here who was the last person that submitted. You go back there and print it back at the form, but there's no way that I guess you said you weren't able to alphabetize the form, so I guess the last person who's here, Candy Consumer, is that the last person on the form?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because you weren't able to alphabetize.
So, okay, so the answer is yes to that. And let's see, what I'm going to do. Well, I'm just going to keep the recording going. Why not? Okay, so yes, when we were looking let's go back to here. We go to the responses, and we were looking at the summary. So the first one was names, and I was trying to figure out
Candy Consumer. Okay, so they do it by the
last
timestamp.
one. So yeah, so that kind of makes sense. I don't got the wrong one. Sorry. That kind of makes sense because that was the last one down here that was added to it. So that does control it. So your question is, this is not significant to you, but this is. And so if we were collecting this and we had this list of parents or students or department members or whatever, then we just got to use our tricks that we can, that we've learned how to use in Sheets. So example, selecting this, and let's see if we can get to it by right clicking, sort sheet A to Z. Bam, there it is. Then as we can see, let me click away somewhere so you can see it a little better. So Merry Mermaid is at the top. Okay, for some reason Merry Mermaid is separated from the rest of these. Oh, I might have, I'm not sure what the heck just happened. I must have clicked something before when I was popping around, but I have frozen the top. So let's just see if I can undo that real quick. Where the heck is that? I'm just teaching Excel, so everything's different. View,
I always
that's where it
wanted to
is.
learn that
Freeze,
too.
there it is. No rows. Okay. So, but still, it says timestamp, and somehow I have this up at the top. I don't know how I did that. I was clicking around too quickly. But anyway, I resume now. If we can do this again. Okay, so Merry Mermaid has now been put below because that was frozen. And again, I clicked on that and didn't even realize I did that. But there it is. We now have it alphabetized. And so Abby Cabby, here's the email address. And so Candy Consumer, Smurfette. So there it is with all of the different responses all the way across there, all the way down to V, which is very grateful. And I'm not sure why this is so large. So I just made this and I looked at it. Ah, there it is, because it's accommodating all of the answers. Somebody made a giant list, which is very clever. So that's why we see that. But what I am curious about is, and this might have been just because I was clicking around too quickly, but we lost our headers up here. We should have our headers. I don't know why we don't. Let me just go back to here real quick and let's see, not in today's. Maybe Google Forms, I put it in there. There's for fun. Here's the one that I did. No, it's the same exact one. It's just I have it stored in a different place. For some reason, the questions aren't at the top. They're supposed to be there. They were there when I started. And again, just clicking around, I might have done something without realizing it. But yeah, so once you have it in a spreadsheet form, you can start doing all kinds of stuff. You can start, filtering things out and like over here, for example, if we click on this and let's see if we can, let's find our sorting or filtering rather. So let's take a look at that. Maybe let's, it's just so tiny. Maybe we just want, I'm gonna get rid of that one, this one here. We're just doing a sort right now. And I just want to see, come on. This is such a ridiculously tiny place to do this. But all I want is the one that says maybe elementary school, for example, and all the rest of them I don't, and I'm just going to sort it out that way. And then say, okay. And then it's going to filter it so we only see the respondents that were from an elementary school. Again, we're in Google Sheets, and we have the ability to use the tools in the toolbar or to follow any of the commands or tools or features that are available to then adjust whatever this information is that we got from where? We got from our wonderful little, pretend survey thing that we did. All right, so what I'm going to do real quick is I just want to say thank you for everyone for coming. I'm going to, at this point, I'm going to end this recording and then we can open it up for more questions and answers. But I just want to say thank you for all coming. And this is a work in progress. We're going to come up with more and more examples that we can show you. But like all of these apps, it's simply a matter of clicking on them and practicing. And what you learn in one Google app will help you with the other Google apps. And the same thing is for Microsoft Office.